Hey Acers, welcome to this week in gaming or whatever you want to call it, but it's this week of Ace role playing games. We have a lot of stuff going on, so this is going to be really cool and really neat, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. And I want to start by welcoming anybody who may be new or who may be returning to the channel. And remember that this is the Ace Role Playing Games Club. ACE stands for Achieve, Create, and Entertain. And we are here as a club to help support one another and any of our members who, in particular, who may have been like I was when I was a teenager, who may feel that leaving Earth a little bit early by our own hand might be a good idea. It's not a good idea. And that's what we are a suicide prevention club for teenagers. And our videos are out here for you and anyone else who cares to watch them. So, welcome. This week, I wanted to touch on the fact that I got to run Deadlands Lost Colony last Thursday. Now, it was sparsely attended, but at the same time, you never want too many players at your table. I have run for 20 players before. That was a fun time. I ran Rocket Nazis on the Orient Express for my kids, my best friend, his kids, their fiancés at the time. I mean, it was a big 20-person group, and we made it through. We had everything was just rapid fire, and it worked. But Tracy Hickman's Killer Breakfast is not one of my things that I can run yet. And I'm wondering if there's a way to run it with Savage Worlds. If not, I'll do D&D because, hey, it is designed for being able to run a Killer Breakfast. Okay, the other way around. Killer Breakfast was designed with it, but that's neither here nor there. And Tracy Hickman, I give a shout out to you. You are absolutely amazing. And actually, I think I've been doing a pretty good job at keeping up on all of my shout outs, but I'm going to make sure that I write Tracy. Thank you here in the things. So I'm going to pause for just a second. Okay, that part's done. Now I wanted to mention that Deadlands game that I played. It was really cool because we started late and we were still able to get in a full combat in which 4 pirates tried to take out my 3 player characters because they got involved when the local marshal came in to try and take them down. And the marshal was taken down. She ended up taking down a couple guys, but one of our guys had snuck a Derringer, which technically was illegal, into the Widowmaker bar where he was at. And admittedly, Surges is kind of the most rough and tumble place anyway. So they get involved in a bar fight, and they end up getting a chance to sit and keep an eye on the lady who didn't get involved, the pirate queen, the pirate captain Lilith. She was one of the fallen angels, and the story then becomes, it's called 310 to Goliath's Belt, which Widowmaker and Goliath's Belt are kind of on opposite ends of the orbits around the sun, or the star that's at the middle of the galaxy and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a nod to the old Western 310 to Yuma. And that was really cool. That was a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the setting a lot. I'm really enjoying the setting. The Deadlands Lost Colony setting is possibly one of my favorite ones that Pinnacle has put out. I highly recommend it. Also this week, I was able to submit 3 events for the next SaltCon, which will be June 7th, 8th, and 9th up in Davis County again, I believe. But I'm only going to be there on the 7th and 8th because I try not to do Sunday games. I'll sit down with you guys on Sundays, but I try not to run games on Sunday for like cons and stuff like that. Next, also, I want to make sure that you know I'm going to be submitting a few more events to run at FanX. A few more, like I'm going to try and run a workshop of a setting build and do an RPG setting build. And so that'll be like a 2-hour workshop. Second, I'm also going to try and do one on the 20th anniversary of Deadlands. I'm not Deadlands, but of Savage Worlds. Deadlands had its 20th anniversary about 5 years ago, so or 6 this year. But that's so that wasn't it. Yeah, that was its 20th. No, that was its 30th. Oh my! Came out in '98. Whew! It's 30 years old now. That's weird. Um, but let's see, or 35 actually, if you count last year. So, wow. Or am I misdoing the math? So 2 more years was 2000. Okay, so no, it's 25 years old. So see, I did misdo my math, and that's okay. I will admit when I've done it wrong, and I did it wrong. So I wanted to talk a little bit today in this video, this longer format video, about how I go about, or not how I go about, but how role-playing games improved my lifelong learning, and it helped me out in college. And I'm not saying to go to college or not go to college. That's something that you have to decide for your own life. But what I do say is that playing role-playing games helped me become a better researcher. That's because, well, it kind of is a natural fallout from reading Tolkien. With Tolkien, I'll just grab it here off the shelf, because as you can see, I got Tolkien up here. Let me pause and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, this book is Return of the King. This is actually a copy that I used when I was in college. The only thing that didn't survive of this set is when the dust jacket on my Fellowship of the Ring got water damaged and got destroyed. But I was able to save the book. That was pretty cool, because goodness knows later I lost plenty of other books. I lost thousands of dollars of books. And that's just one of the life things. But anyway, so Return of the King ends on page 311 of this text. And then you have on page 440 is where the index ends. So from page 313 to 440, so that's 127 pages of text that is just appendix. And Tolkien wasn't alone in this. Frank Herbert does the same thing with Dune. This is actually a 1965 Chilton copy. It's not in the greatest shape, but it's still a first edition. I think it was the book club edition though, so it's got it's got jagged cuts on the pages, but yeah, it was put out by Chilton's. Chilton is the same company that publishes car manuals. That's the part that still trips me up, because I grew up reading Chilton manuals all the time when I was helping my dad fix the cars and work on cars myself. I read Chilton manuals, and son of a gun, in 1965 they didn't publish the first edition of Dune. And in the first edition of Dune, starting on page 9, Roman numeral 9, it starts with terminology of the Imperium. And it is through page 30. So that's 11 pages, or not 11 pages, 21 pages of terminology, just to be able to get you linked in with what they are doing. Now, and actually when I first got this, I thought it had been a kid or something who had done it before, but that's the drawing in the front cover. I thought some kid had like drawn a little arc or something over it, and I realized, nope, that's actually printed in there. And so that's, especially when I turned the page and I saw this. Anyway, but that's what is in here. These two books have pages of text for made up words and stories and things and events. I mean, Tolkien's got a whole section in there on the calendars of Middle-earth and how to understand them and even how to align them with the human calendars that we live by. So those kind of things, the science fiction and fantasy that I read as a kid, and they definitely trickled into role-playing games. Because think about the way that 5th edition is laid out. In 5th edition, you get back here in the back, you have your appendices. You even do research on your spells. So you're like, I mean, it's really funny to watch my friends sit there and look up things on their phone real quick while we're in the game and be like, true polymorph. Okay, here it is. Casting time is one action range. Now, one thing that I've noticed is that hardly anybody actually does components. And maybe that component management is not actually a good mechanic. But, or, as somebody who does Savage Worlds all the time, I would probably actually make it so that if you failed on the roll and you rolled like a 1, 2, or 3, that you are out of a component, and make it so you have to now spend some time, maybe even a little side quest, take your friends on an adventure to get more of that component. That would be the way I would do it if I were running D&D. I would say, okay, you rolled a 2. You didn't roll in that one, so you didn't completely fail, but that means you are out of your material component, or you were unable to do the semantic component, or you didn't do the verbal component, or whatever. Because, I mean, like, the true polymorph, you got to get a drop of mercury, a dollop of gum arabic, and a wisp of smoke. I mean, how do you keep track of those? How do you keep those in your pocket while you're going around and doing things? Savage Worlds also has it. With Deadlands Lost Colony here, since this was the one I had closest to hand. It's not the core book, but it also is indexed, and that's much appreciated. The thing is that almost any role-playing game text is or should be indexed, and should be capable of referring you to things that have that word in it, or to where that topic is discussed. So if I go here to the index here, and I want to look at 0G, because Savage Worlds Lost Colony being a space western game, I want to look at 0G and its effects in the game. I actually had to do this on Thursday. I had to look this up. So I go to page 64. And if you are writing your own role-playing game, that's something that actually can work very well, is that you can make sure to run the indexing tool in Word to index your sections, or anytime you introduce another topic, make sure you're using your headings and things like that. So right here on page 64 is the entry on 0G. And I'm grateful that they did index this, and they used the tools, because actually Quark Express had a better indexing tool, but that's not the point. The point is, you have indexes in these things, just like with any textbook. You will have an index. You will have that listing of where the word or term exists and shows up. And that's one of the things that I loved about role-playing games, and what they did for my life is they actually made me a little bit better of a researcher. And I learned things about side things that are involved in these role-playing games. If there was a concept or a idea that I didn't understand, I would research it. I learned all sorts of things. I learned electronics from being a ham radio operator, but only a little bit. But I learned enough electronics that I could actually explain an electronics concept. And there's other concepts that come up in role-playing games that are real-world concepts, that those actually make you a better human being because of interacting with those in a pretended environment. And did it make things easier when I was researching Rats in the Walls by H.P. Lovecraft as one of my examples as to how the Novum is applied? Yes. I probably need to do actually a whole episode on the Novum. That's a really cool concept, and I really like it a lot. But at the same time, I also need to I need to make sure that I am that I am spending my time when I'm in college or when I'm in a business place researching the right things. So that's extended actually into my current jobs. And like as an example, I'm reading Critical Chain by Eliyahu M. Goldratt. And am I learning things that can apply to role playing games? Yes. But am I learning things that apply to my business? Yes. The work that I do? Yes. And this is applying theory of constraints to project management and things like that. It's really cool. And I found ways of learning these books because these are telling the story, and so they're not, these aren't like regular textbooks. They're not heavily indexed. They're actually written like novels, but it makes it so I want to research and I want to even like make my own index of where terminology is at. So that's my main ramble today, my main thrust of what I wanted to share. And something that if you're a teenager, you can share this with your parents and say, role-playing games are good for me. Look, it's helping me become a better researcher. And it will. Because, here's a perfect example. I read about an area of eastern Texas, southeast Texas, called the Big Thicket. And it turns out it's the real place. Not only that, but I deep dug into it. I read the whole Wikipedia article. I looked up lots of pictures about it because at the time I was running this Big Thicket adventure in Foundry, so I needed pictures to show on the screen. And sometimes when I run it in paper, in person, I will print out pictures of the Big Thicket so that people get an idea of how it looks and feels. And they kind of get this idea of what it all looks like and how it works. And I gotta find better ways of getting my Midjourney to produce the images I want because, hey, there's one game that I like playing it. I like running it at almost every con, and that is, and I don't think I've run it the last few cons, but probably gonna run it again, maybe this next Halloween. But there is Chickens in the Mist, and it's one of the it's a great little adventure, and it always leaves us on a high point. It's a lot of fun. But the 3 events, going back to the 3 events I'm running at SaltCon. I'm running Dust Bunnies, Toilet Doomer. I'm running another Doghouse Rules game called it's called Trailer Park Shark Attack. And I've mentioned that one before on this channel as well. And 3, which by the way, I ran Trailer Park Shark Attack for a whole bunch of new teens this last Tuesday. And they had a blast. And we just kind of went where it went. I cut out some of the middle stuff because there were distractions and we were running out of time, but we were actually able to finish the adventure. Full on finish the adventure. And they gave Sharktopus a little what for. And I'm hoping to get some time this year to research how to do better edits on these videos so that way I can up my production quality and I can make myself a better editor on these things. So that way these can be fun. So when I say Sharktopus, I can have Sharktopus, a little graphic of him like wiggle across in front of me. That would be pretty cool. But so a shout out to Doghouse Rules as well and their wonderful products. And finally, I just want to remind you all that I do love you. As one human being to another, I love you. You're amazing. And the world is a better place because you're in it. And I really hope to see you at my table.